For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The U.S. Supreme Court punted Donald Trump's presidential immunity claim back to the lower courts today, ruling presidents do have immunity for core constitutional powers, but not for unofficial acts. They did not detail what those acts are and are not, but gave some guidance for the lower courts to decide. The conservative majority's decision further delays the Washington criminal prosecution against Trump on federal charges he plotted to overturn his 2020 presidential election loss, and all but ends the chances he could be tried before the November election. Meanwhile, progressive Democrats are calling for a new law that would codify the Chevron doctrine after the High Court struck down 40 years of precedent Friday, ruling against the power of federal regulators to step in and decide ambiguity in laws, including laws aimed at protecting the environment, public health, workplace safety, and consumer protections. Max Pringle reports.
It's a terrible decision that will gravely damage the ability of our government to protect us from all kinds of threats to our health and well-being.
David Doninger is an attorney with the Natural Resources Defense Council. He says with this decision, the High Court has essentially taken regulatory powers away from experienced government agency experts and given it to the courts.
You may now have random judges in, say, Amarillo, Texas, deciding all kinds of national policy decisions, from ensuring the safety of medications to air pollution limits or rules to keep the doors from blowing out of airplanes.
Supporters of the ruling argued that the 1984 rule gave too much power to the executive branch and agencies like the EPA. Hassan Kanu is a reporter for the Washington-based think tank The American Prospect. He said business and conservative interests have had the doctrine in their sights for a long time.
That's what you hear when you hear folks talk about dismantling the administrative state.
The ruling comes on the heels of another Supreme Court decision that paused the enforcement of the EPA's so-called Good Neighbor rule, meant to limit industrial smokestack emissions and other pollutants from affecting areas downwind from power plants. I'm Max Pringle.
A Palestinian health official is accusing Israel of torturing Palestinian detainees from Gaza. The director of the Al-Shifa Medical Center, Gaza's largest hospital, Mohammed Abu Salima, was among the 55 Palestinians released. His comments translated by Al Jazeera.
Many of the Palestinian detainees were killed under interrogation. They were denied food, water, and medicine. Many of the medical staff, including doctors and nurses, I left them behind as they are still in the Israeli prisons. From among the medical staff, Dr. Adnan al-Burj and Dr. Iyad al-Rantisi were killed, and may they rest in peace. The Israeli occupation forces left has no regard to any red lines.
Israeli authorities have denied such allegations. More than 100,000 Israelis flooded the streets of Tel Aviv Saturday, demanding new elections and a deal to release hostages still in captivity in Gaza. Many carried pictures of hostages and held banners reading, "Save us from Netanyahu," the prime minister. The country's grown increasingly divided as the war in Gaza drags on, and ceasefire efforts have faltered, with tens of thousands of people joining months of anti-government protests across the country. In the U.S., the Justice Department is preparing to file criminal charges against Boeing. It's proposing the airplane manufacturer plead guilty to criminal fraud in connection with 2 deadly plane crashes involving its 737 MAX jetliners. This after the company failed to meet its agreements with the Department of Justice to avoid prosecution in the wake of 2018 and 2019 plane crashes. Boeing will have until the end of the week to accept or reject the offer, which includes agreeing to an independent monitor. Lawyers representing relatives of some of the 340 people who died in the crashes say their clients are angered with the offer because it does not include additional charges or a public trial. Politico's reporting a lawyer for some of the families, Robert Clifford, called it a sweetheart deal and told the publication the DOJ's afraid to prosecute a company they believe is too big to fail. The month-long celebration of LGBTQ plus pride culminated with massive celebrations in New York, Chicago, and San Francisco over the weekend and elsewhere around the globe. In San Francisco, thousands showed up for the Trans March rally marking its 20th anniversary. This is some Republican-led states have imposed bans on transgender health care. Activists with Gay Shame and other groups, including Jewish Voice for Peace, rallied against the big companies funding Pride and funding Israel's war in Gaza. Mama Ganush condemned SF Pride for including the companies as sponsors.
SF Pride that have Amazon and US Bank, union-busting companies and other companies. These companies have spent $9 billion in the Israeli Defense Forces. Amazon spent $9 billion to kill my people.
Amazon and Google have a $1.2 billion contract called Project Nimbus that provides Israel with AI and cloud computing. President Joe Biden commemorated Pride Month in New York at Friday's opening of the Stonewall National Monument Visitor Center. France is on the cusp of electing its most far-right government since World War II after first round of voting this weekend, which boosted the anti-immigration National Rally Party, giving it 34% of the vote. But a new left-wing coalition isn't far behind. The new Popular Front got 28% of the vote. A second round kicks off Friday. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.